In the mortal realm, where the Yellow River once flowed like a current of jade across the heart of the land, a sorrow too vast to name had taken root. For 10 relentless seasons, no rain had graced the earth. The golden rice fields cracked and withered, their once vibrant stalks reduced to brittle husks that whispered only of death. Streams that once sang lullabies to the valleys now carried nothing but dust, and the very air itself had grown thin and ragged, like the breath of an old man struggling to draw life from the furnace of summer. In the humble village of Harmony Creek, despair was no longer an emotion, but a way of life. The people walked as shadows of themselves, their cheeks hollow, their eyes glazed with resignation. Among them stood a young man named Li Wei, whose heart carried a burden heavier than any drought-stricken field. His beloved grandmother, the gentlest soul in the village and the woman who had raised him with wisdom and warmth, was slipping away. A fever, born of heat and thirst, consumed her frail body. Each day she weakened, and each night Li Wei feared it might be her last. The elders gathered beneath the ancient banyan tree, murmuring of legends too old to be remembered with certainty. They spoke of the celestial dragon, guardian of all waters, whose tears once fell as rain upon the earth. But the dragon had sunk into an endless slumber, its heart chained by grief. The wise scholar Master Bai revealed a greater truth. The dragon Cs sorrow was but a mirror of the Jade Emperor S own. After the tragic death of his beloved consort, the Emperor had sealed the celestial gates, abandoning the mortal world to silence and drought. The dragon, a creature woven from empathy itself, felt the Emperor's agony so keenly that it could no longer bring itself to weep. Li Wei listened, and where others heard only myth, he heard a call. A bold plan took root in his mind, audacious, even impossible. He would not sit idle as his people faded into dust. If the heavens had forgotten their duty, then he would remind them. If the dragon had ceased to cry, then he would awaken its heart. Though but a mortal, he resolved to journey to the celestial realm and plead for the rains himself. His journey began with the Whispering Peaks, mountains so tall their summits pierced the eternal clouds. The path was merciless. Sharp stones cut his feet, and winds roared like mocking spirits, jeering at his smallness against the scale of heaven. Yet Li Wei pressed forward, driven not by pride, but by love. Each step carried him farther from despair and closer to hope, as he thought of his grandmother's fragile smile, of the laughter of children who might never know harvest, and of the life that still clung stubbornly to the dying land. Amid the mists of the high trail, he heard faint cries. There, trembling in the shadows, was a fox spirit, a child lost from its mother. Its small body shook with fear, eyes wide and glistening. Li Wei, though weary, did not hesitate. He knelt, whispering words of comfort, and lifted the fragile creature into his arms. With patience and care, he retraced the paths until the anxious mother fox appeared from the fog. Their reunion was tender, and in gratitude, the mother offered him a gift, a small pearl that glowed softly, as though a star had been caught within its heart. It seemed worthless, yet warm, and Li Wei accepted it with humility. Further into the wilderness, Li Wei entered a forest where the trees twisted like mourners frozen in grief. There, his last pouch of rice spilled to the ground. As he reached for the grains, a frail sparrow landed nearby, its feathers dull, its tiny frame trembling with hunger. Li Wei's stomach groaned with its own emptiness, yet he pushed the rice toward the bird. "Eat, little one," he whispered. "Your hunger is greater than mine." The sparrow pecked eagerly, strength returning with each grain. When the last was gone, it lifted its head and released a single chirp, pure and bright, before taking flight. Li Wei watched it disappear into the sky, his belly empty but his heart strangely full. Days blurred into nights. Exhaustion gnawed at him, yet his resolve never faltered. At last, he reached the River of Sighs, a vast chasm filled with bottomless fog. The cries of those who had failed echoed within its depths, and no bridge spanned its width. Despair pressed heavily upon him. Then the pearl from the fox spirit pulsed. Light spilled from it, weaving into a single thread of starlight that stretched across the void. Slowly, it unfurled into a shimmering bridge, not built of stone, but of compassion. Every step Li Wei had taken, every kindness he had given, had formed this path. With steady faith, he crossed, and as his foot touched the far side, the mortal world dissolved around him. He stood in the celestial realm, where rivers flowed with liquid starlight and mountains rose as pure jade. It was a place of unimaginable beauty, yet silence weighed upon it like mourning robes. Celestial beings moved listlessly, their radiance dimmed, their hearts chained to the sorrow of their emperor. There, Li Wei beheld the celestial dragon. It lay coiled upon clouds, vast and resplendent, its scales shimmering with 1,000 hues of sunset. Yet its eyes were closed, lids heavy with grief. Upon one eye, a single tear rested, enormous, luminous, yet unmoving. Li Wei pressed on, entering the golden hall where the Jade Emperor sat alone. There were no guards, no heralds, no music. Only the Emperor upon his throne of solid gold, his gaze fixed on a wall of mirrors that reflected his own endless sorrow. Li Wei fell to his knees, not from fear, but from shared humanity. "Great Emperor," he began, voice raw yet steady, "I am no hero, only a man who loves his people. The world below withers. My village is dying. My grandmother, the light of my life, stands at death's door. I come not to demand, but to beg you to remember us." The Emperor's voice was low, brittle, heavy with centuries of grief. "What do you know of suffering, mortal? Your fleeting pain is but a wisp, while mine is eternal. I have lost what cannot be restored." Li Wei bowed his head. "Your sorrow is a mountain, and mine a grain of sand. But when a grain of sand is all you have, it feels as heavy as a mountain. My tears for my grandmother are no different from yours for your beloved. In suffering, we are the same. I ask not that you lessen your grief, only that you let your compassion flow once more, for the living who still wait for your light." For the first time in 10 seasons, the Jade Emperor turned his gaze. No longer did he see only his reflection, but the face of a mortal, tattered, weary, yet shining with empathy. In Li Wei's eyes, he saw not weakness, but strength, the strength that bridges realms. The Emperor's heart trembled. At that moment, the single tear upon the dragon's eye quivered. With a gentle motion of the Emperor's hand, the tear fell. It cascaded not as a drop, but as a torrent of radiant rain, flooding the skies, breaking through the sealed gates, and rushing to the parched earth below. The mortal world rejoiced. The cracked soil drank deeply, rivers sang anew, and the golden rice rose once more in fields of green. The air filled with the fragrance of rebirth. Li Wei returned to Harmony Creek to find laughter ringing once more in its streets. His grandmother's fever had broken, her cheeks flushed with health. She smiled at him with the warmth of dawn, and he wept, not with sorrow, but with gratitude. The villagers spoke of his journey, passing the tale from one generation to the next. Yet they did not call him a warrior or a conqueror. They remembered him as the man whose compassion pierced the sorrow of the heavens, whose kindness built a bridge no stone could match. And so, from that day forward, the Jade Emperor decreed that the celestial gates remain open. Rain flowed freely, but more than that, an invisible bridge of empathy endured between heaven and earth. For in the story of Li Wei, mortals and gods alike were reminded that even the smallest act of compassion could awaken the greatest of hearts.